Gut so.
Ja.
Okay, gut. Es freut mich, zu hier sein mit euch. Vielen Dank für die Einladung. Schade, kann nicht viel weitergehen. Ja, sondern auf kalifornischen Englisch. Okay. Jetzt muss ich zum Arbeit gehen. Danke, Karl. Okay. Das ist meine Geschichte. Sie sollten etwas von mir wissen. Warum mag ich auf Deutsch? Ich kann das nicht. This is a biographical sketch, and you should know something about it to understand what comes next. So, in my beginning, I'm a surfer out of Southern California, right? And then I go to the university and earn an engineering bachelor degree. Interesting, and I cut thermodynamics and went to Florence for 6 months. And then, of course, I had to be an artist. So the next degree is an art degree. And the art degree was curiously human-centered. It was a precursor of our design program. And being human-centric, I'm saying, as an engineer, what are humans? So I did my doctorate study in neurophysiology, studying humans as though they were robots. Interesting. And then I got my first academic position at the ETH Zurich. And of course, they fired me because they wanted to have a scientist, not a designer, which gave me a chance to go back to Stanford and get a job where they actually wanted an engineering designer. And as my wife claims, the rest of my life looks like that. Okay. Now this is the life we share together. This is the trailer for the International Conference on Engineering Design. We chaired that at Stanford in 2009. And you can go to Vancouver next month and catch the 2017 version, hosted by one of our alumni. I invite you to reflect on the video on how many pieces of technology you saw and how few people you saw. We were very proud of that. But 10 years later, we see a difference. It's the human. Who's been to Stanford? Quite a few of them. Anybody who hasn't, you're invited. No travel costs. Well, the cool thing is, it's much cooler now than it was 10 years ago. And the quick version of history is that a man named John Arnold started the group that has become the design thinking community. He was trained as a psychologist and working as a mechanical engineering professor, and the department hated that. So they fired him. Got the message? Came to Stanford and launched a program in combination with the social sciences, the fine arts, and mechanical engineering, a very unusual combination. And over the years, it spun off many feel-alikes, all of which have their own character. Today, we can celebrate that for the last 35 years we've been studying how those teams made up of engineers, artists, and social scientists could actually do something useful for the planet. And this book series is online and available free in e-mode. A few years ago, my department, my school, was celebrating themselves, and they used some numbers that really shocked me, really. In the last 50 years, approximately 11,000 companies started. Measurable. Well, in the upper right corner, the turnover of those companies. I was shocked. I live there, but I don't do that. You'll find that we put a D dot in front of almost everything. The Valley, sure enough. Middle Stanford, just one piece of it. We're overwhelmingly surrounded by other universities and corporations, both new and old. That's our shared mission today. Let's make it happen. One of the big ahas in my personal world that I'm going to risk sharing with you is that we have been studying extreme collaboration for 35 years and took it to be normal. And we finally took a big pause and looked around us and discovered that virtually everybody else is talking about cooperating versus collaborating. In the German dictionary, Zusammenarbeit treated synonymously. In the English dictionary, cooperation, collaboration are listed as synonyms. If you scratch hard on them, they're really different. This is another version of evolution. We had to be very creative in those early years of evolution. Every shadow in the forest was a threat. And then we got science. And we started to optimize versus survive. And now we've gotten very, very good at it. And I'm raising the question, what's next? We can stay on that path, and I think you can anticipate that we will ourselves be aliens amongst humans. A little reading opportunity. If there are words on the screen, I'll try not to talk. The words largely echo the image, reinforce it. You will have access to all the slides. In fact, the two have to live together, and that's one of the challenges we face. This particular graphic has been used to describe design thinking for decades, and now it's being extended to, during the divergent phase, think different. It's actually a collaborative moment. When we get something that we think we should actually implement, that's when we should get cooperative. So we need to do both. It's not either or. But our civilization has largely ignored the left side. And so I'm inviting you to help me balance the equation. Are we evolving or devolving? This was pretty shocking to me personally to start interpreting the last many decades from a different point of view. I want to stress the word relationships. It's not about human-computer interaction anymore. It's not about user experience anymore. It's about building relationships. with people and with machines. We're quite convinced that it's about teams, and it's the network of teams, not a team alone on the planet, a team connected. I'm led to think that many of you are from industry. What I want you to know is that we desperately need to take our research into industry. We've shaped some of our knowledge through academic context. It now has to be tested in industry, and our number one buyer in the moment is called Deutsche Bahn. Okay, CEO came to us and said, help, we need to learn how to collaborate. He nailed it beautifully, and we're working with him. Oh yeah, we got smart stuff everywhere. Oh yeah, we've got AI. Ooh. Oh yeah, we have very smart executives. We train them. Our biggest research subject in the moment is autonomous cars and their relationship to humans. People hunt, machines don't, really. Tangible communication, my gestures will always beat my words. All that prototyping bullshit. It's about trying something, and you'll learn from trying. You won't learn from talking about it. And it accelerates your rate of learning, and that learning rate is critical to your survival. Oh well, and sometimes management has to deal with it. Crazy people. These are students in my lab hanging one of their teammates upside down. I walked in, oh, drop that guy, and I go to jail. Let me know how it comes out. The design side of your brain is really there to create ambiguity, alternatives. Every alternative you add to the future increases the ambiguity of the future. That's your job. It's okay. That's the big question at the top. Why does this prove to be so hard for a lot of people, the majority of people? One answer to that question was landed by Micah Lande, who looked at teamwork in my graduate curriculum and made a note of the fact that we were forcing individuals to perform in all four quadrants. Typically, those are very different professional callings. You don't have to function in all four. Any one is good enough, and we demand, hey, you have to take your project into all four quadrants. These are missions in the curriculum. You'll see a little more of that later. Two extremes from his data set. This is the team that just barely covered the two quadrants, didn't visit the others, didn't go back and forth very much. This is the outstanding team that covered all the quadrants, repeatedly got in and out, especially of the engineering and design spaces. They produced the wow, that's what we're always looking for, breakthrough innovation, wow. The other guys get thanks. I always have to ask an audience, have you hunted a wild animal? 0. Have you hunted 1? Have you hunted a wild fish? We usually get more of those. Did you eat your animal? Most of the world comes up 0. Nordic countries have the highest percentage. Shanghai scored 0 for 500. Your community is responsible for the pipeline model. So our flight emulator for startup involves a team at Stanford and a team somewhere else in the world. And we did one with Mannheim last year. You're going to hear more about that. You'll see more. And in this example, it was Technical University of Munich. Both sides have a teaching staff. Both sides have a professional coach, somebody who's been in the business for a few years, comes back as a coach, not an expert. This was the year we discovered we needed culture coaches because things got really painful when the Munich guys kept planning, and replanning. Anybody from Munich here? Doom? So we forgive you. They were even more upset at these damn guys at Stanford who would build, and rebuild, no plan. The big dog is a real company. They bring a design challenge to us. You'll hear about the SAP project done with you. In this case, Audi is the source of the problem. They've been a very reliable partner for the last 10 years. I'd like you just to catch the big effects. For the first 10 weeks, we focus on what's the problem. Unlike most designers who immediately try to solve the problem, we challenge the problem. Then we spend 10 weeks trying to solve it creatively, find the breakthrough. We hope that by the time we're at the end of the middle line, we've got something we think is a candidate for breakthrough. And then we have to make it real. And in the language of my title slide, the first 2 phases are intensely collaborative, usually painful. The last phase is intensely cooperative and coordinate. Make that thing. Make it work. The organization structure we have is rather complicated. Pair of teams, pair of coaches and instructors, with the boss on one side that wants the product, show me. A boss on the other side that wants to know, what'd you learn? Show me. The learning and the product can be completely disconnected. I give an A to a perfect failure. This is eye candy for some of the universities we've worked with. Eye candy for some of the companies we've worked with. My footnote on the companies would be they're all over the industry map. Everything from spacecraft to eye makeup. Perfume we haven't done yet. Next year. I haven't seen your new space, but this is for your new space. It's very important to have a space that lets those things happen. Our own space is all 10 teams working in that curriculum setting our in a space where they can overhear each other. And when you've got a good idea in your SAP project, and I can steal it from my InnoSpring project, wow, these guys did a big steal. That's it. Couldn't have been a smarter theft. Better to stand up than sit down and be passive. We've got to work with each other across time zones, especially distance is an issue, time zones. And I really enjoy this because in this particular year they're doing a live jazz session with their team in Sweden. So, thank you, Scott, we can do jazz too. We go through an experience of helping people begin to think about teamwork because most of our students have had little or no team experience in their first 4 years of college. And a footnote on this last year, 60% of the students were from China, native. Another 15% were from India, native. Zero teamwork in any of those students. So we gave them a whole 2 weeks to figure out how to do teams by building a paper bicycle. And this is our most famous paper bicycle from Aalto University, Helsinki, Finland. Beautifully designed, beautifully manufactured, disassembled, shipped to Stanford, reassembled in 6 hours, rolled out to the game space and failed in the next minute. Very famous failure, beautiful failure. We remember them. All the tools for getting tangible are in the same space where the thinking should take place. Every week we're doing a cycle with the team that essentially asks the big question, what did you do? Why? And then, what did you learn from the doing? So that little tautology is used every week. About 10 years ago, we started diagramming our class as it became more and more international, and started calling it a team of teams. And then about 2 years ago, one of my doctoral students sent me a copy of this book. How many of you have seen the book? Several. Read the book? You have to read it after you get it. Okay. I suggest that this be homework for you. It's super readable, and it's super unexpected that Stanley is the Commander-in-Chief of U.S. Special Forces in Iraq and Afghanistan from 2004 to 14. He arrives on the ground with the perfect military command control structure. And he claims in an opening story to have 100 times the firepower of the enemy, but his casualties are higher. This is not a space that I'd ever work in, but the big deal is that after 10 years, he restructures his command to look like a team of teams. And that is now becoming the organizational structure for special forces in the US. Big effect. The other big effect is essentially asking, what's the problem reading? And Keith Dorst has a very readable book that he calls Framing and Reframing. In my view, it's your number one opportunity to get creative is to reimagine the problem. And the word reframing is better than problem. Problem sucks us down to some small thing. Framing says, what's the context? And now the problem has to exist in a context. We have to deal with both. It's a better story. Both books are easy reads on your next train trip. Both authors use these 4 words over and over again. I'm confident that you've seen them in the news media nonstop. Yeah, it's complicated. It's complex, not complicated anymore. So these defining labels lead us to seek a different future than we might have 30 years ago in the last century. I leave this slide in because my School of Engineering has just put up $200 million of its own money to promote collaboration across the school and across the university. You're not allowed to spend any of the money if you get an award on your technology. All of the money is for people and stressing the collaboration between people. I was very surprised when this was announced, and I was delighted. This is the lady who started it. She's a hardcore physicist, and she wants to promote the science side of the equation. Mr. Aru is an iconic designer. He wants to focus on the solution side of the equation. I have the feeling I mistyped the word. But the big message of the day is it's about humans and machines. We're encountering that nonstop in everything we do now. This is a crazy moment when I'm going to ask you to do what I do. I want you to mimic me. In our left hands, we control this science paradigm. The only knowledge worth having is context independent. Wow, good stuff. In our right hand, we hold the design paradigm. The knowledge you must have is context dependent. Humans, business, societies. I'm inviting all of you, please take these gestures home and recruit more people to help balance the equation. We actually need to recruit the entire population to participate because the equation is not balanced today. We have estimates of 100 to 1,000-fold difference in society's investment in the science paradigm tech versus the design paradigm humans. So it may take us 100 years, but we know how to justify it. The best learning mechanism in the human species, mimicry. Thank you. To expand on it, huge investment on the science side of the equation. Very small investment on the design human side of the equation. Big surprise. Huge complaint that there's very little practical outcome for all that money we spent on tech and science. The argument, let's get the equation balanced a little better, and then we'll have more impact on the society. Pretty elementary thinking, long overdue. We've been in the 21st century for 17 years already, and we're way behind. Now I'm going to jump into my curriculum environment and share a couple of examples. I think you keep me honest on time. Okay, exotic, deal, science and tech. Redesigned the spacecraft. About 3 meters across, 8 meters tall, monolithic equipment rack. Crazy people in Stanford start asking, who's the user? We discovered that the technicians who have to validate that the satellite works, 6 to 12 of them working 6 to 12 months, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, to verify that the damn machine works as designed. Redesign the satellite. That's the user. We call them a persona, the tech support man, which we find repeatedly in different industries. So the team came up with a crazy idea. Why not let the satellite unfold like a lotus flower so that the electronics are at bench height? Test faster, test more accurately.
Sometimes in satellite manufacturing, boxes need to be replaced. Unfortunately, this often happens late in the process. Imagine you wanted to replace a box. This box. It would be impossible to get to it without taking apart the whole satellite. Open space solves this problem. A hinge fixture is used. A crane lifts the strong back to the panel.
All the experts in the
industry
said you can never have a joint like that.
Allowing the entire panel to rotate down.
Because there are no flexible heat pipes to go across that joint.
So you can access the box you need when you need it.
Power and signal. Students built a full-scale functional model of the joint, and they CAD modeled the rest of the vehicle. Done deal. Then what? The project gets sent to Lockheed Martin. All the doors lock, the window shades go down, and they're going to rethink whether this is usable. And now that's our team. The partner academically was Mexico City University. And here's the big outcome. Lockheed Martin rejected the design, but they got the big idea. Redesigned to be tested versus high performance specs. And that's what the company earns now, 150 million a year more than they did before. And the piece I like for their corporate guys is the better product led to a better business design. So restructured the entire business. Reading. I'll add my footnote to this, that when universities and companies participate in this curriculum that lasts essentially a year, the half-life value proposition is measured in years, 3 to 12 years, depending on your industry. This phrase is credited to Marcus Dutzowitz, head of innovation at Airbus. If you thought autonomous cars were a threat, let's show you a little bit about autonomous mining machines.
Imagine a place far beyond today's limitations. Imagine machines that do the work for you, even without you. An autonomous operation will provide you with time to perform other tasks. Machines that instinctively avoid accidents.
Autonomous everything. Oh damn, humans.
Fully electrified machines and site optimization will reduce your energy consumption to a fraction of today's requirements. Some would call this a vision. We call it the plan.
Remember that plan word. Plan, plan, and replan. Going to be speed reading opportunity. Construction sites are chaotic places. No regular streets, no predictable movement. How are you going to inform a human about what's going on? The team built all of these subsystems, so it becomes a system of system solution versus a distinct product. A lot of fancy tech. Big autonomous machines. That truck's got 50 metric tons in it. Oh, damn human. Actually, just the dust is enough to knock you down.
Warning, 40-ton hauler approaching from your left. Adjust position to your right. All clear.
All right, nailed it. Thank you, guys. A couple samples from our research. Our preferred strategy is to watch what people actually do. Not ask them, not survey them, watch them. Our system model is that some design requirement comes in at the left and some group is assigned to work on it. And historically, we track the technical variables only. For 35 years, we've been studying the human variables as well. And in the last 3 years, we now measure contextual variables. And the fourth box is coming next year, the financial variables. One of the earliest big ahas was a software engineering team, the team that invented the first Windows operating system. When the researcher looked at how they interact with each other, the big aha was, I'll be damned. Their work is guided by gesture. Not the words, not the drawings. Wow. Then in another study, a measure of learning at 3 months, 6 months, and 9 months. It's the same measure of learning that the AI community uses to say that their computer is learning. And what you see are two big effects. Teams started lower and had a lower rate of learning, and they produced thank yous. Teams that were stronger to start with, we usually call that diversity, had a higher rate of learning, they produced a wow. Learning really matters. Then the surprise of surprises was studying NASA aerospace engineers and how do they spend their time. And the big aha was, well, in a very non-Gaussian distribution, they spend about 7 seconds paying attention to anything. And they're gone. Guess what? I apply that to every audience. You're paying attention to me for about 7 seconds. And then you have a thought, you have an itch, you get hungry, your mind goes someplace. So the notion that people are constantly attentive to anything in a group event is just wrong. There is one way to get people's attention. They come back. Now what the hell was that about? Wow, just silly man. John Arnold, the man I introduced in the earliest slides who helped start this program, was constantly telling us that design is all about the questions you ask, not the decisions you make. It took us 25 years to actually get the measurement. It's actually very difficult to measure. Those teams who were asking 40 questions an hour, they produced wealth. Those teams that asked half that, 20 questions an hour, produced thank you. Doesn't seem like a big difference until you multiply by 1,000 the number of hours they might work together. That's a hell of a difference. I'm going to test you guys at the end of the talk. Any questions? Of course, we use both. Divergent thinking, convergent thinking. We need them both. That's a cycle of design thinking. The divergent and the convergent. And we have one of my favorite doctoral exams tried to ask the question, if somebody on the team is really good at switching, knows when and how to do that, a pivot thinker, if you put one of them on a team, you'll have a winning team. And his doctoral dissertation delivered the null hypothesis as a no effect, which I really like because my bias from other experiences, everybody has to pivot, not just one person. And I'll apply that to all forms of leadership. It has to be distributed, not focused in one person. It's a team. And now we're at the cutting edge of our research, and this is what Deutsche Bahn has invested in. They've invested that we should come and teach them, company staff, how to use this notation on the right that records how a team is interacting.
To make it work.
But to have something like a
Special feature of this strategy is it focuses on the receiver of a message, not the speaker
and it could be
of a
like a
message.
kit.
You have your
Interestingly, the notation
like sandboxing.
comes
Let's
out
use that.
on shorthand.
Yeah,
And
I
Trade
mean,
Observer
take
can do
those
this in real time. And, well, okay. More readable. Read the stuff with blue behind. Those are the guidelines for doing improvisational theater. So teamwork is a version of improvisational theater. The rules of conduct that lead to good theater and lead to breakthrough are very similar. Take your company on an improv evening. So we're showing company staff how to use the notation. They send us the data. They can analyze it themselves. We also analyze it. We get data that looks like genetic data. the amino acid sequence in your genome. And the first big batch of data we sent to the same software environment that is used to find patterns in genetic material, proteins, came up with the discovery that if somebody on the team says yes and, there's a very high probability that someone else will offer an idea in the next 3 minutes. Und Sie wissen, was das bedeutet. Wenn Sie sagen, ja, aber, you just knocked the other guy on the ground. You didn't just disagree, you knocked him over. So auf Deutsch ist ja, aber much stronger than in English, yes and, or yes but. So we've known this from practice for decades, and now we've got the scientific evidence that backs it up big time. If I have time, 10 more minutes. Keep moving. In my research, we're absolutely overwhelmed with the incidence of robots in the work environment today. In the car, in the plane, in the hospital, in the psychiatric ward. Yeah, it's a quick read on. I really like the origins of mimesis. An actor in a Greek play mimicking one of the gods. In our attempt to understand your relationship to your autonomous car, our big discovery was there's an information dialogue, sure. There must be an emotion dialogue or we won't trust the car, and the car won't trust us if it can't measure our emotions. And as you've all experienced with the navigation system in your car, you need to exchange data. It gives you an off-ramp and you say, not the way. You take an off-ramp and it doesn't know how to say, not the way. So we've got a huge new set of design requirements. Good, we'll be in jobs for the next 50 years. Updating the mission statement, updating the hypothesis, updating the value proposition. 2 quick examples. How to help a traveler from the US traveling in Shanghai with the context. They came up with a haptic wearable. Goes on your arm, gives you vibrational signals as your navigation system might say, stop, go, left, right. The video's a little tedious, but I want you to catch the outcome. Somebody speaking in the room. Let me just say, you've all been guilty of either walking through your city, watching your phone and not the cars, or you run into somebody who's doing that and they run into you. It's already here in the future. to all of you is, if your product produces romance, you've got to win. And I steal 3 minutes to underscore that. Build a smart backpack. This one's on the market already. Design challenge from an Indonesian shoe manufacturer was give us a shoe that will give us entree to North America and Europe. Similar challenge. So make a smart shoe was what they came up with. Smart shoe for whom? Well, for girls under 10 and guys over 7. No romance, but a family. They thought this was all a mistake. So I rushed it. The guys who struggle to get their shoes on now, that's the solution. Innovation, minds and emotions communicating to the X-power, collaboration. Teams, join us. We're going live this autumn with an online version of the key elements of that curriculum available to anyone, anywhere. And if in doubt, order that book. Thank you very much for your attention.